There are predators among us, not the kind that lurk in dark alleys, but the ones who sit across from you at dinner tables, who smile in boardrooms, who call themselves your friends. They don't hunt with claws or fangs. They hunt with charm, with manipulation, with the precision of a surgeon cutting through your psychological defenses. And most people never see them coming. You've felt it, haven't you? That moment when you realized someone had been playing a game you didn't even know existed. When you discovered that your kindness was being weaponized against you, that your trust was being harvested like a crop, that your good nature was nothing more than an open door they walked through whenever it served their purposes. Machiavelli understood this reality intimately. He didn't write about power because he was cruel. He wrote about it because he was realistic. He saw that the world operates on hidden currents of influence, manipulation, and strategic positioning. And those who refuse to acknowledge these currents don't become noble martyrs. They become casualties. The social predator is not always obvious. They're often charming, charismatic, seemingly generous. They know exactly what to say to make you feel special, chosen, understood. But beneath that carefully constructed exterior lies a calculating mind that sees you not as a person, but as a resource to be exploited. They study your weaknesses like a general studies terrain. They map your emotional triggers like a hunter maps prey paths. And they strike when you're most vulnerable, most trusting, most open. But here's what Machiavelli would tell you. Vulnerability is not a virtue when it becomes a liability. Openness is not strength when it becomes exploitation. And trust, when given indiscriminately, is not love. It's stupidity dressed as nobility. The art of strategic invulnerability is not about becoming heartless. It's about becoming smart. It's about building psychological armor that protects your core while allowing you to navigate the world with tactical precision. It's about learning to see the game before the game sees you. Most people operate from a framework of assumed goodness. They believe that if they're kind, others will be kind in return. If they're honest, others will reciprocate with honesty. If they're loyal, they'll receive loyalty. But Machiavelli would laugh at such naivety. He understood that the world is not a mirror, it's a battlefield. And on battlefields, good intentions are often the first casualty. The social predator thrives on your assumptions. They count on your belief that everyone operates from the same moral framework you do. They exploit your tendency to give the benefit of the doubt, to make excuses for red flags, to rationalize away the warning signals your intuition sends you. They know that good people have a blind spot, a reluctance to believe that evil can wear such a pleasant mask. But strategic invulnerability begins with a fundamental shift in perspective. It starts when you stop assuming good intentions and start observing actual behavior. When you stop listening to what people say and start watching what they do. When you stop making excuses for inconsistencies and start recognizing them as intelligence. Machiavelli wrote that it's better to be feared than loved, but what he really meant was this. It's better to be respected than exploited. It's better to be seen as formidable than vulnerable. It's better to be known as someone who cannot be easily manipulated than someone who can be easily controlled. The predator seeks the path of least resistance. They're looking for someone who won't fight back, who won't question, who won't set boundaries. They want someone who will absorb their toxicity without complaint, who will make excuses for their behavior, who will continue to give even when they're taking everything. So the first principle of strategic invulnerability is simple. Become someone they cannot easily consume, not through aggression, but through intelligence, not through hostility, but through boundaries, not through cruelty, but through calculated distance. You see, most people think protection means building walls, but Machiavelli understood that true protection comes from controlling information, managing perception, and maintaining strategic positioning. The fortress that cannot be breached is not always the one with the highest walls. It's the one that cannot be found, cannot be predicted, cannot be mapped. Social predators rely on predictability. They need to be able to anticipate your reactions, to know which buttons to push, to understand your patterns of behavior. When you become unpredictable, when you break their ability to map you psychologically, you become dangerous to their operations. This is why silence becomes such a powerful weapon. Not the silence of weakness, but the silence of calculation. When you stop over-explaining, stop oversharing, stop revealing the inner workings of your mind to everyone who asks, you create mystery. And mystery is the enemy of manipulation. The predator needs access to your emotional landscape. They need to understand your fears, your desires, your insecurities, your triggers. Every piece of personal information you share is intelligence they can use against you. Every vulnerability you reveal is a potential weapon in their arsenal. Every emotional reaction you display is data they can exploit. But when you become strategically opaque, when you reveal only what serves your purposes, when you share only what advances your position, you flip the script. Instead of being the one who is studied, you become the one who studies. Instead of being the prey, you become the observer. Machiavelli would tell you that information is power, and power should never be given away freely. Your thoughts, your feelings, your plans, your vulnerabilities, these are state secrets. They should be protected with the same vigilance a nation protects its military intelligence. This doesn't mean becoming emotionally unavailable to everyone. It means becoming strategically selective about who earns access to your inner world. There's a difference between being closed off and being discerning. There's a difference between being cold and being careful. The social predator often presents themselves as someone safe, someone you can trust with your secrets, someone who truly understands you. They create an artificial sense of intimacy, a false feeling of connection. They make you feel like you've found someone who finally gets you, who accepts you, who values you for who you really are. But this is often a trap. They're not bonding with you, they're farming you. They're cultivating a relationship that serves their purposes, gathering intelligence they can use to maintain control, creating emotional dependencies they can exploit when needed. True strategic invulnerability requires you to slow down this process, to resist the artificial acceleration of intimacy, to maintain emotional distance until someone has proven, through consistent action over time, that they deserve deeper access to your world. Machiavelli understood that trust should be earned, not given. That respect should be demonstrated, not assumed. That loyalty should be proven, not expected. And that access to your inner circle should be a privilege that comes with a price, not a right that comes with proximity. The predator hates boundaries. They see them as obstacles to overcome, challenges to navigate, walls to break down. They will test your limits constantly, pushing against your restrictions, probing for weaknesses in your defenses. They'll make you feel guilty for having boundaries, selfish for maintaining them, cruel for enforcing them. But boundaries are not walls, they're filters. They don't keep everyone out. They keep the wrong people out while allowing the right people in. They're not about isolation, they're about curation. They're not about fear, they're about wisdom. When you establish clear boundaries and enforce them consistently, you send a message that resonates through the social ecosystem around you. You communicate that you are not available for exploitation, not open to manipulation, not willing to be consumed by those who give nothing in return. The predator will often respond to boundaries with escalation. They'll become more charming, more persuasive, more insistent. They'll try to make you feel like you're being unreasonable, like you're missing out on something valuable, like you're making a mistake by not trusting them completely. But this escalation is actually intelligence. It tells you everything you need to know about their true intentions. Someone who respects you will respect your boundaries. Someone who truly cares about your well-being will support your efforts to protect yourself. Someone who genuinely values the relationship will work within the parameters you've established. But the predator cannot afford to respect your boundaries because boundaries interfere with their agenda. They need unlimited access to be effective. They need you to be porous, malleable, available. When you become boundaried, you become less useful to them. And when you become less useful, they often reveal their true nature. This is when you'll see the mask slip. When charm turns to pressure, when understanding turns to manipulation, when patience turns to aggression. This is when you'll discover who was genuinely interested in knowing you and who was simply interested in using you. Machiavelli would call this the moment of revelation, when the predator shows their true face, not because they choose to, but because they're forced to by your refusal to remain vulnerable to their tactics. Strategic invulnerability also requires you to understand the economics of relationships. Every interaction has costs and benefits. Every relationship requires investment and produces returns. The predator specializes in creating relationships where they receive maximum benefit while providing minimum value in return. They're experts at making you feel like you're getting something valuable when you're actually being depleted. They create the illusion of reciprocity while maintaining a fundamental imbalance. They make you feel chosen, special, valued, while systematically extracting your resources, your energy, your time, your emotional bandwidth. But when you begin to audit your relationships through a strategic lens, when you start measuring what you give against what you receive, when you begin to notice patterns of extraction versus contribution, you develop the ability to identify these parasitic dynamics before they fully establish themselves. This doesn't mean reducing relationships to cold calculations. It means developing the intelligence to recognize when someone is taking advantage of your generosity, exploiting your kindness, or consuming your resources without providing equivalent value in return. The strategically invulnerable person understands that their time, energy, attention, and emotional bandwidth are finite resources that should be invested wisely, not donated indiscriminately. They understand that saying yes to everyone means saying no to themselves, that being available to everyone means being valuable to no one. Machiavelli wrote extensively about the importance of being selective with alliances, careful with trust, strategic with loyalty. He understood that the ruler who tries to please everyone ends up serving everyone and leading no one. The same principle applies to personal relationships. When you become strategically selective about who gets access to your resources, who earns your investment, who deserves your loyalty, you don't become antisocial. You become antisocial to those who would exploit your social nature. You don't become unloving. You become unloving to those who would weaponize your love. The predator often uses guilt as a primary weapon. They make you feel selfish for having needs, cruel for setting boundaries, unreasonable for expecting reciprocity. They specialize in making their problems your responsibility, their failures your fault, their emotional state your burden to manage. But strategic invulnerability requires you to develop immunity to guilt that doesn't serve you. Not all guilt is valid. Not all responsibility is yours. Not all problems require your solution. The person who makes you feel guilty for protecting yourself is often the person you most need protection from. Machiavelli understood that guilt is often a tool of control used by those who cannot offer genuine value. They guilt you into giving what they cannot earn, into providing what they don't deserve, into maintaining relationships that serve them at your expense. When someone consistently makes you feel bad for taking care of yourself, for having standards, for expecting basic respect and reciprocity, they're revealing something important about their character and their intentions. They're showing you that they need you to remain vulnerable in order for the relationship to work for them. But relationships that require your vulnerability in order to function are not relationships. They're exploitation schemes dressed as connections. They're resource extraction operations disguised as friendships. They're psychological parasitism masquerading as love. The strategically invulnerable person learns to recognize these dynamics quickly and respond accordingly. Not with anger, not with confrontation, but with strategic withdrawal, with calculated distance, with tactical unavailability. You see, the predator's power depends on your participation. They need you to engage with their drama, to absorb their chaos, to make their problems your priority. When you withdraw your participation, when you become unavailable for their games, when you stop being a reliable source of the resources they're seeking, you neutralize their ability to exploit you. This withdrawal doesn't need to be dramatic or obvious. It can be subtle, gradual, strategic. You become less available, less responsive, less invested. You stop volunteering information, stop offering solutions, stop making their emotional state your responsibility. The predator will often escalate when they sense this withdrawal. They'll create more drama, manufacture more crises, increase the pressure to re-engage. But this escalation is actually confirmation that you're moving in the right direction. Their desperation reveals the true nature of the relationship. Machiavelli would tell you that when someone panics at the thought of losing access to you, it's rarely because they love you. It's usually because they use you. When someone fights against your boundaries, it's not because they care about the relationship. It's because they care about what the relationship provides them. True strategic invulnerability also requires you to develop what Machiavelli called sprezzatura, the art of making the difficult look effortless. You don't announce your invulnerability. You don't declare your boundaries. You don't explain your strategic positioning. You simply embody it. The most powerful protection is often invisible protection, operating like a sophisticated security system that works silently in the background, undetected by those who would seek to breach it. The predator should never fully understand why they can't manipulate you, why their usual tactics don't work, why you seem immune to their influence. They should never be able to pinpoint exactly what makes you different from their previous victims. Instead, they should simply find that you're somehow different, somehow more difficult to read, somehow less available for exploitation. This confusion on their part becomes your greatest asset, because when they can't identify your defensive mechanisms, they can't develop countermeasures against them. Think of it like a master magician's trick. The audience knows something is happening, but they can't quite figure out how it's being done. Your protection works the same way. The manipulator senses resistance, but can't locate its source. They feel like they're trying to grab smoke, always thinking they're about to get a hold of you, but finding nothing solid to grasp. This invisible armor is far more effective than obvious defenses because it doesn't trigger their problem-solving instincts or activate their determination to break through your barriers. This requires you to develop a kind of psychological poker face that goes far deeper than mere facial expressions. It's about cultivating an entire persona that reveals nothing while observing everything. You must become comfortable with being misunderstood rather than over-explaining your every thought, feeling, and motivation. The compulsive need to be understood is one of the greatest vulnerabilities that predators exploit. They know that most people will exhaust themselves trying to clarify, justify, and explain their positions when challenged or misrepresented. But when you allow others to wonder about your motivations rather than revealing them, when you resist the urge to provide a detailed roadmap of your inner world, you maintain what intelligence agencies call operational security. Your thoughts, plans, and vulnerabilities remain classified information that only you have access to. This doesn't mean becoming robotic or emotionally unavailable to everyone. It means being highly selective about who earns the privilege of seeing behind your carefully maintained exterior. You must let your actions speak louder than your words, and your silence speak loudest of all. In a world where people constantly broadcast their every thought and feeling, where social media has trained us to provide running commentary on our lives, the person who moves quietly and speaks sparingly becomes an enigma. This enigmatic quality is not about being mysterious for the sake of drama. It's about understanding that information is power, and when you freely give away information about yourself, you're essentially handing over power to anyone who might use it against you. When you master this art of strategic opacity, you become what Machiavelli called virtuous in the classical sense. Not good in the modern moral sense, but excellent in the strategic sense. The original meaning of virtue was about effectiveness and capability, not about being nice or agreeable. You become capable, formidable, effective, someone who cannot be easily defeated because they cannot be easily read, cannot be easily predicted, cannot be easily controlled. This classical virtue is about excellence in the art of living strategically, about being so skilled in the management of your own life that others cannot easily disrupt or derail your progress. The predator relies on your psychological weaknesses like a parasite relies on its host. They feed on your need to be understood, your desire to be liked, your fear of being misinterpreted. These are natural human needs that have been weaponized against you by those who understand how to exploit basic human psychology. When you become comfortable with being mysterious, with being selective, with being strategically unavailable, you remove their primary tools of influence. It's like removing the fuel that powers their manipulation engine. Without access to these psychological pressure points, their tactics lose their effectiveness. This transformation is not about becoming cruel or heartless, though others may accuse you of exactly that when their manipulation attempts fail. It's about becoming wise and discerning in a world that often punishes wisdom and rewards naivety. It's about understanding that in a world full of hidden agendas, your greatest protection is often your ability to keep your own agenda hidden while developing the skill to see through the agendas of others. This is not paranoia, it's pattern recognition. It's not cynicism, it's realism based on experience and observation. Machiavelli wrote that the wise prince must be both fox and lion, combining cunning with strength, intelligence with power. The fox to recognize traps, the lion to frighten wolves. In modern terms, this means developing both the intelligence to see manipulation coming from miles away and the strength to resist it when it arrives at your doorstep. The fox represents your analytical mind, always observing, always questioning, always looking for incongruencies between what people say and what they do. The lion represents your inner strength, your ability to say no, to walk away, to stand firm in your boundaries even when others pressure you to compromise them. Most people develop only one of these qualities, if any. They're either too trusting, lacking the fox, or too aggressive, lacking the fox's subtlety, or they're perceptive but lack the courage to act on what they see. The strategically invulnerable person develops both aspects and knows when to deploy each one. Sometimes the situation calls for the fox's clever maneuvering, sometimes it requires the lion's direct confrontation, and sometimes it requires a sophisticated combination of both. The strategically invulnerable person is not paranoid, but they are prepared. They don't walk through life expecting attack from every corner, but they also don't assume that everyone has their best interests at heart. They don't assume the worst about everyone, but they don't assume the best either. Instead, they observe with the detached interest of a scientist studying behavior patterns. They evaluate based on evidence rather than hope, on behavior rather than promises, on patterns rather than exceptions. This means paying attention to what people do when they think nobody is watching, how they treat people who can't benefit them, what they say about others when those people aren't around. It means tracking whether someone's actions align with their stated values over time, not just in isolated incidents. It means recognizing that people often tell you exactly who they are through their behavior, but we're trained to ignore these signals in favor of more pleasant narratives. They understand that protection is not a one-time decision, but an ongoing practice, like physical fitness or professional skill development. You can't just decide once to be strategically invulnerable and then coast on that decision for the rest of your life. That invulnerability is not a destination, but a discipline that requires constant attention and refinement. That strategic thinking is not a talent that some people are born with and others lack, but a skill that must be developed, refined, and maintained through consistent practice and application. This ongoing practice involves regularly reassessing your relationships, boundaries, and vulnerabilities. It means staying current with new manipulation tactics as they evolve, understanding how your own psychology might be exploited, and continuously strengthening your weak points before others can identify and target them. It's like maintaining a castle. You don't just build the walls once and assume they'll stand forever. You regularly inspect for weaknesses, reinforce vulnerable areas, and upgrade your defenses as new threats emerge. As you begin to implement these principles, you may notice that some people in your life become uncomfortable with your transformation. They may accuse you of changing, of becoming cold, of being different than you used to be. These accusations often come wrapped in concern or disappointment, designed to make you feel guilty for your growth. But remember what Machiavelli understood: those who benefit from your weakness will always resist your strength. Their resistance is not evidence that you're doing something wrong, it's evidence that you're doing something right. The people who are upset by your boundaries are usually the people who are benefiting from your lack of boundaries. Think about this carefully. Why would someone be upset that you're protecting yourself unless they were somehow benefiting from your lack of protection? The people who are frustrated by your unavailability are usually the people who were taking advantage of your constant availability. They had grown accustomed to having unlimited access to your time, energy, and resources, and your new selectivity disrupts their established patterns of taking from you. The people who call you selfish for protecting yourself are usually the people who were being selfish by exploiting you. This projection is a classic manipulation tactic. They accuse you of the very thing they've been doing to you. When someone calls you selfish for having boundaries, they're essentially saying you're being selfish by not allowing me to be selfish with you. When they call you cold for being less emotionally available, they're saying you're being mean by not letting me drain your emotional energy whenever I want. This is not coincidence. This is intelligence. Their negative reaction to your positive change tells you everything you need to know about the true nature of your relationship with them. It's like a litmus test that reveals the hidden chemistry of your interactions. It reveals who was genuinely interested in your well-being and who was simply interested in what your well-being could provide them. Those who truly care about you will support your growth and strength, even if it means they get less access to you. Those who were exploiting you will resist your transformation because it threatens their supply source. Pay attention to who celebrates your boundaries and who fights them. Notice who respects your new standards and who tries to negotiate them down. Observe who adapts to your increased selectivity and who tries to guilt you back into your old patterns. These reactions provide invaluable intelligence about people's true intentions and the real nature of your relationships with them. Strategic invulnerability is ultimately about sovereignty, about ruling your own life with the same intelligence, calculation, and strategic thinking that successful leaders use to rule nations. It's about understanding that you are the monarch of your own existence, and monarchs who do not protect their kingdoms do not remain monarchs for long. This metaphor is more than poetic, it's practical. Your life is your kingdom, your energy is your treasury, your time is your most precious resource, and your attention is your most valuable currency. Just as a wise ruler must carefully manage their kingdom's resources, form strategic alliances, and defend against threats both external and internal, you must apply these same principles to your personal life. This means having clear policies about how you spend your time, who gets access to your energy, what behaviors you will and won't tolerate, and what your non-negotiable standards are. It means understanding that every yes to one thing is a no to something else, and every person you allow into your inner circle takes up space that could be occupied by someone more deserving. In a world full of social predators, your naivety is not nobility, though society often tries to convince you otherwise. Your vulnerability is not virtue, despite what popular psychology might suggest. Your availability is not love, regardless of how others try to frame your constant accessibility. These qualities, naivety, vulnerability, and unlimited availability, can become liabilities that others exploit to serve their own purposes while leaving you depleted, confused, and resentful. The culture often promotes these traits as positive, especially in women, because they create a population of people who are easy to exploit. We're told that being trusting makes us good people, that being emotionally open makes us authentic, that being always available makes us loving. But predators rely on these cultural messages to keep their prey accessible and undefended. They benefit when you believe that protecting yourself somehow makes you a bad person. But when you master the art of strategic invulnerability, when you learn to protect yourself while still engaging meaningfully with the world, when you develop the ability to be both open and guarded, both generous and selective, both loving and strategic, you become something that predators cannot consume. A force to be respected rather than a resource to be exploited. You transform from prey into something far more powerful, a person who chooses their battles, selects their companions, and guards their energy like the precious resource it is. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, and it's not always comfortable. You'll have to disappoint some people who are counting on your continued weakness. You'll have to say no to requests that you previously would have automatically said yes to. You'll have to watch some relationships end when people realize they can no longer take advantage of you. But in exchange, you'll discover what it feels like to live from a position of strength rather than vulnerability, choice rather than obligation, strategy rather than reaction. This is the Machiavellian mindset applied to personal relationships. Not cruel but careful, not heartless but strategic, not antisocial but selectively social. Not closed to love, but closed to exploitation masquerading as love. It's about developing the discernment to tell the difference between genuine care and manipulative concern, between authentic connection and strategic positioning, between someone who wants to know you and someone who wants to use you. Remember, in the game of social dynamics, you're either playing or being played. There is no neutral position, no opt-out clause, no way to avoid the game entirely. You're either strategic or you're a strategy. Either you're consciously directing your interactions or others are unconsciously directing them for you. You're either protecting yourself or you're being consumed by those who refuse to protect you, who see your lack of protection as an invitation to take whatever they want from you. The choice is always yours, but choosing not to choose is still a choice. It's choosing to remain vulnerable in a world that will not hesitate to exploit that vulnerability. Strategic invulnerability is not about becoming a cold, calculating person who trusts no one and cares for nothing. It's about becoming a warm, intelligent person who trusts wisely and cares strategically, who understands that the best way to help others is to first ensure that you're strong enough to help from a position of abundance rather than depletion. The choice, as always, is yours. But choose wisely, because in a world full of predators, the greatest predator you face is often your own willingness to remain prey.